Okay, hello. My name is Bill Pella. Welcome to Fukuoka JALT, and let me hand over to our speaker, Naomi Miki, talking about applications for Kakenhi.
Okay, my name is Naomi Miki. I'm not an active JOT member, but I'm happy to have opportunity to contribute to the JOT Fukuoka by giving some presentation on Kakenhi application. This is my first time to make any speech through Zoom, so probably it's a little bit awkward, but I do my best, okay? And this is the outline of today's presentation. First, okay, I'd like to talk about what is Kakenhi. I'm sure everybody knows what Kakenhi grant is, but I'd like to show some statistics available categories I found on the website of JSPS. And also, I'd like to show the flow of application procedure here. And next, I'd like to walk through the website of JSPS and show you how to get the application form, Kakenhi pamphlet, and assessment criteria, all in English, and how to access the electronic application form, the documents that explain what to do with the system very quickly. Number 3, as for the assessment criteria, I'd like to look at the contents a little more carefully so that we can learn what components are actually evaluated in the research proposals. While I was preparing for this presentation, I read all the pamphlets and documents related to available Kakenhi, both in English and Japanese, and learned a lot, literally a lot, about the process of the assessment. So I'd like to share what I learned about the evaluation review, which is probably better to know, and the knowledge helps make an effective proposal. Then I'll explain how to write a research proposal, focusing on the first 3 sections, which are the most important part of the application. In these sections, there are some factors that you should include to get the high score in the review. I don't know if I have enough time to see the successful examples in detail, but ideally, I want to show some samples both in English and Japanese. And finally, I'll talk about the research information database site called Research Map, which helps dramatically reduce the annoyance of making the whole list of your research history. By the way, I am not the specialist of Kakenhi application. I just got the grant twice luckily. The first one as a principal investigator of Kakenhi, category B of Kakenhi, with 4 other co-investigators for 4-year period in 2015. And the second one as an individual investigator of category C for 4-year period again in 2019. So I'm not a specialist, but I can share some knowledge and experiences of preparations for Kakenhi grants with you. Okay, let's start the first one. What is Kakenhi? I think everybody knows the English name, the Grants in Aid for Scientific Research, and it is the largest competitive funding program in Japan. And this is Kakenhi categories. The first 3 are the main grants having the same conditions. There is no restriction on career or age, and the project can be conducted by 1 individual researcher or multiple researchers. The research period of the project should be from 3 to 5 years. The difference between A, B, and C is the total grant amount. money. If you are an individual researcher, the Kakenhi is probably the best choice. Grant money is up to 5 million yen. If you conduct a research project with probably 4 to 6 researchers, then you might need some more money. In that case, you can apply for Kakenhi with grant money from 5 to 20 million yen. And Kiban A, this one, is generally speaking for science field in which a project may need really expensive machines or facilities. And if your research is really challenging, you might be able to choose this challenging research category. But to be honest, I don't know well about this category. And the second bottom is for early career researchers, which is called wakate, wakate in Japanese. For this grant, you should be in less than 8 years after getting a PhD. There used to be an alternative condition, like even if you don't have a PhD, you can apply for this wakate if you are younger than 40 years old. But according to the recent news posted on the website of JSPS, this condition will probably disappear, will be erased from this year. Also, there will be a change in the research period. It will be extended from 2 to 4 to 2 to 5 years. The goal grant, total grant money is the same as Kiban C. And if you are interested in this wakate category, please check this year's application pamphlet, which will be posted on the 1st September, though English version might be posted a little later than that. The last one is called Startup, which is available for a single researcher who newly gained a research position in the institution or who just returned some kind of leave, like maternity leave, childcare leave, or other kinds of leaves. The research period is up to 2 years, and grant money is up to 1.5 million yen per year. Now let's see which ones are most obtainable with this chart. The acceptance rate is the highest in early career scientists, wakate, but the actual number of successful applications is the most in Kiban C. The challenging research grant seems to be the most difficult grant among these. Okay, now let's check the flow of application procedure very quickly. First of all, if you don't have your ERAD ID, then you should get it from your institution first. Then go to the website of JSPS, and the first thing to do is download application form. Then you have to log in. You have to write the research proposal, and then log in to e-application system. After that, you need to upload your research proposal in a Word file onto the system, and the application will be converted into a PDF file. So check and then check your application in PDF file and confirm it. The deadline for the Kakenhi application is determined by each institution. Usually, it's much earlier than the deadline of JSPS. So please check the deadline with your institution. Now I'll show you where to find application information on the web. First, go to JSPS web page. There is a button on the top right to change the language into English, so click it. Okay. The website of Kakenhi is under this leftmost banner, and the topmost one leads to Kakenhi website. You go to the electronic application system from here. Okay. Anyway, first go to the Kakenhi website. Okay. Here on this page, there should be an announcement when the English version of the application procedure and forms are posted onto the website. So they will appear on the how to page, how to apply page. Okay. Also, from this page, you can get the information about the peer review process here, which I'm going to talk about later. And if you want to know more about the grant system, you can download and read the Kakenhi pamphlet here. Okay. Okay, as I said from the previous page, you can access to the electronic application system too. Here, it scares you by saying Japanese version only, but it's only one page in which you don't have any English. So let's click it. And just remember, you need to click the leftmost green one. Then it will lead you to the page where you can find the button on the top left to change the language into English. Now, before going to, oh, sorry. Okay, come on, oops. Now, before going to the researcher's login page, I recommend you download the documents that explain everything about the electronic system in English. Then go to the login page. Go to the login page by clicking here. Okay. From this page, everything is explained both in English and Japanese. So just log in with your ERAD ID and password. Follow the instruction and enter the necessary application information here. Okay, now let's move on to the talk about the assessment criteria. I think this can be the most important part of my presentation. The application form changed in the fiscal year of 2018. It became much simpler than that before the year. Following this change of application form, the assessment criteria have been changed and they got simpler too. It used to have the 5 main factors on which the research proposal was evaluated before 2018. But after the change, it has been reduced into 3 main factors: academic importance, validity of research method, and number 3, appropriateness of ability to conduct the research and the research environment. Number 3 and 4 in the old version, the originality and innovativeness. And number 4, ripple effects and universality disappeared from the main factors in the new version. However, they are actually included as the evaluation elements in the first factor. Come on. Oops. Okay, this is the list of evaluation elements, and they should be recognized in your research proposal. The first factor consists of 4 elements, or rather you might say 6 or 7 elements. And these are what you have to describe in your proposal, and the score will be given from 1 to 4 to this factor, to this first factor, based on if these elements are explained sufficiently. These elements, if it's important, does it have key scientific question? Is it original? The research plan is sufficient? Do you describe domestic and overseas trends and explain positioning of the research and ripple effects to wider academic areas? And the second factor consists of 2 elements, research method and no inconsistency between research plan and expenditure. Based on these elements, the score will be given from 1 to 4 again to this second factor. And the third factor consists of 2 elements, sufficient ability to conduct a research plan and research environment. In the same way, the score will be given from 1 to 4 to this third factor. When I make my proposal, I always look at these criteria and check if all of these elements are clearly recognized in my writing. What I'm showing you now, the list of assessment criteria, is available from the peer review process page. So, and you can download a PhD file. Okay, now the system of evaluation is also explained in the file. The system is called two-stage document review. In the first stage, each research proposal will be read and reviewed by 4 reviewers. And each research project will be given the scores of 3 factors, which we looked at in the previous slide, and overall score and short review comments like the pros and cons of the reviewers. These comments are used in the second stage review. And all the projects are evaluated using the relative comparative evaluation system, and the scoring distribution is predetermined. Only 10% of applications of the total that each reviewer received can get the best score of 4. The next best score of 3 is 20% of the total. Acceptance rate of Kiban C and B was from 25 to 30%. So in order to get a grant, the target score will be 3 or 4. Among the proposals, those around borderline go to the second stage review. They are reviewed by the same 4 reviewers. Again, the scoring distribution is predetermined. The reviewers are supposed to refer to overall scores and comments given by the other 3 reviewers, decide the level of priority, and assign the overall score to each project. I think this knowledge of assessment is kind of helpful because you can know what steps your application will take and also what points of the project you have to explain clearly in your proposal. Okay. Okay, now you know what your proposal should include. So I'll talk about some other useful tips in writing the first 3 main columns of a proposal. Okay, and these are the instructions of the first column. You can see that some descriptions are actually corresponding with the evaluation elements in the assessment criteria, such as key scientific question and significance and originality and research method and plan here. And first of all, in this column, you have to write a summary of research proposal. And then write the main text within 3 pages. The point here is not to write any lengthy explanations about how your research is important. Everybody knows that most of the proposed research has some kind of significance in its own field. So you don't have to explain how important the research is, but you have to show some proof that it's a unique research. You have the ability to conduct the research and have some detailed plan to attain the objective you set. Having said that, they say the reviewers have to read approximately 70 to 100 proposals within a month. It must be annoying and irritating if they need to read proposals with a lot of jargon and full of small-sized letters. So in order to reduce the burden and give them a good impression, I always divide the column into several sections and use the same number and expressions in the instructions above as the title for each section. For example, this section, the instruction number 1 says you should write 2 things, I think 2 things, scientific background and key scientific question. Instruction number 2 says you should include 2 things, the purpose of your research and the significance or originality. And the number 3 says you have to write your research plan and method. Okay. And this is my research proposal with which I got a grant in 2019. It's in Japanese, but at least you can get a sense of how I arranged paragraphs. I made some space between paragraphs so that it can be easy to read. These numbers corresponding to the number in the instructions, so you know that everything that should be written in this column is here. It is also a good idea to underline the sentences which you really want to emphasize, but don't underline too many lines. And this is the English version of the successful application. It's Haswell Christopher Sensei's proposal last year. Thank you, Haswell. Thank you, Trevor, for allowing me to use your application. And basically, what he does here is almost same. He writes a title. Oh, I cannot. Okay. He writes a title for each paragraph to show what the point is in the paragraph, like project background, key research question, research method here, originality here, and proposed study. Okay.
I'm sorry, Mickey, can I ask, Naomi, can I ask a question?
Okay.
There's a question from Greg R. in the comments. He asks, how does this key scientific question relate to or compare with the term research questions?
Key research question. Say that again, please.
Greg, maybe you want to ask your question?
Can you go to the previous slide?
Previous slide, okay. This one?
Sorry, back one more.
Okay.
So here in red, number 2 says key scientific question.
Number 2, yeah.
Does that mean the actual research question or research questions? Or is this a summary of the research question, the specific research and research questions? Are these the same terms or different terms?
Just a moment. I have to check into the Japanese. Okay, can I answer the question later? Probably, I think in Japanese, I thought this is the research question. Is the same as a scientific question. And it's not the summary, right? Summary should give the whole idea of your research. But the research question should be in the question form. What you are actually obtaining, what you are aiming at.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Okay. Well, and basically he's the same thing. Okay. All the elements are explained sufficiently, and he also uses space so effectively to make it easy to read. And he demonstrates that the applicant has a good skill to write a concise and readable report and proposal. Okay, sorry. Oh, it doesn't move. Okay. Now the second column can be written in the same way. It's only for one page. First, you need to write a research history and preparation status. And secondly, domestic and overseas trends and positioning of the research. Now, okay. Now this slide shows my proposal on the left and Haswell's proposal on the right. Again, the way of writing is basically the same. The first one, research history, and then write background to the idea. Preparation status here. And number 2, domestic and overseas trends, and the positioning of this research. I think here, the preparation status and the positioning of research are important factors. For example, in the preparation status, I wrote about recent relevant achievement and said I had already started the project and the grant money could help this develop further. The positioning of the research should be explained because the expertise of the reviewers may be different from yours. As for the third column, JSPS gave us a note in the application procedures. This part used to be just a list of academic achievements. The applicants tended to think that they need to fill out space with as many achievements as possible, giving it an exhausting effort. It resulted in inserting many unnecessary or irrelevant items into the list. So they changed the title of this column, like applicants' ability to conduct the research and research environment. But then it caused another misunderstanding. Many applicants thought that they don't need to write research achievements anymore and created the proposals without any list of research achievements. However, here you have to prove your ability to conduct your research. The best way to do is not just to write a list of research achievements, but add to the list some short descriptions of the outcome, discoveries, and how they are related to the proposed research. Also, I think, sorry. Oh, doesn't move, okay. Okay. Yes. And also here, oh, just a moment. Also here, I think you can effectively write some research activities other than publication and appeal to the reviewers and show your ability to conduct the research. For example, I put some achievement about creating database with other co-researchers here. And also I add some experience of giving presentation at symposium. Okay. And here, okay. Here is the description of research environment. In my case, I explained that I found that the important materials are in the National Gallery of Ireland and the New York Public Library. And I'd already had experiences of visiting there and collecting the necessary items for my research. Also, I wrote that I had already obtained approval to access other materials from these facilities. So it should be really concrete, and you have to give some exact names. Just okay. And this is Haswell's proposal. He made a list of research history in the first page and explained the research environment on the next page. Okay. Oh, sorry. Okay, finally, I'd like to tell you about the database site of ResearchMap. Because the column for the long list of research history disappeared from the proposal, now the Kakenhi applications are linked to this ResearchMap website. ResearchMap is Japan's largest researcher information database as a general guide to researchers in Japan and Japanese researchers abroad. It is linked to the ERAD, and the database can be used as a reference in the process of assessment. I mean, the reviewers can check the research map while reviewing the proposals. And active registration is encouraged by JSPS. So if you are thinking about applying to Kakenhi, it's better to create your own account on the website. You can keep updating your information, which reduces the burden of making the list of your research history. You need to search for your own name on research map and check if your institution has already created your account first. If you don't have an account, then go to the sign up page and create your own account if you have an ERAD number, researcher's number. If you don't have an ERAD number, then the easiest way is to look for somebody who has an account already and ask him or her to send an invitation to you from ResearchMap. All are explained in English on this website. And this one is my own page. I created both in Japanese and English. Probably later we can go to the web page, actual web page, and then look at what it looks like. I think, well, that's all from me. Thank you very much for listening to my presentation. I hope my presentation will help you get a grant in the future. Okay, sorry.
Okay, thank you very much. I'd like to ask everyone to quickly open up their cameras and mics to give a round of applause. Thank you.
I'm very sorry because this is my first time giving a presentation through Zoom, and my Windows computer doesn't move so quickly.
Oh, it was fine.
Very smoothly, and yeah, I'm really nervous. So my pronunciation in English cannot be easy to catch. Sorry.
Yeah, I thought now we could open up for questions if anyone has questions or even discussion of stories about their own applications. If you could maybe use the raise hand button that you'll find underneath the participants list. If you make an application, do you get to see your own first stage comments?
First stage comment?
Yeah.
First stage comment?
In the review process, you said that there were comments by 4 reviewers, and
I think reviewers are sharing the comments with each other, but I'm not sure if it's possible to see the comments as the applicants. I don't remember well. But even if you can't see the comments, you just get the result, right? What percent, where was your position in the all applications, and what evaluation elements was bad. How many reviewers put the bad to the which element, yeah. Do you understand?
Yes. Anyone have a comment on that?
Actually, I have a related question. So, most applications are rejected. I think my first application was sort of on the borderline, but there's no real feedback about what to improve. So do you have any advice or suggestions about how to improve your proposal if it's rejected?
I think it's better to ask somebody to read your application, somebody who is not in the same field, to read the application and which one is not clear and which one is clear. Because some reviewers might not have the same expertise as yours.
Mm-hmm.
So there must be some specific parts that is difficult to understand, probably.
Naomi, here's another question
Okay.
from Paul. How about researchers who are very close to retirement? Like if they're going to retire next year, can they still submit proposals?
I'm not sure, but in the past, I know somebody who got a grant before retiring. So probably it's better to ask the institution. You are thinking about applying this year, and if it's possible to keep researching, and the institution can manage to do that.
Any other questions?
Maybe just a comment on if you're retiring, perhaps it would be better to have somebody else be the principal investigator, because a similar thing happened with Wakako Pennington. So she was, I think, the principal investigator, and her and her husband, family, moved to the United States. And her co-researchers, I think, couldn't continue the research because the principal investigator was gone. So I think, like a co-investigator can leave as long as the principal investigator is still there. So maybe that would be the best way to do it if you're planning on retiring.
Christopher Haswell has a comment. It says, they will be the ultimate gatekeepers for your application and your future use of funds.
Nope. Okay, so Zoro.
Christopher, do you mean they as the principal investigators or your university?
There was one comment above that. I was just saying that I agreed with Miki Sensei's idea about having a good line of communication with the people in your institution. They're going to be the people who, give you the advice and are gatekeepers for, your application. You usually have to send it to them earlier. So having a good connection with the person in your research office, Kakenhi office, is a really good piece of advice at all stages of the application.
Do applicants have to be full-time at a university?
No. As long as some institutions can take care of the applicants, the part-time teacher also can apply to the grant.
Okay, and Greg has a comment or a question in the chat. Is there a difference between a regular working year and a sabbatical year for Kakenhi applications and the funding term?
I don't know.
Does anyone have experience of receiving Kakenhi and also having a sabbatical year included? Anybody here? Yeah, someone points out that might also depend on the institution, what the rules are. No other questions?
Actually,
Trevor?
Naomi, do you have any advice about how much funding you should apply for? Because obviously, you don't want to look like you're greedy and just ask for as much as possible. So any advice about that?
You have to write, how much money you will spend in your plan. So I think it's not a good idea to be greedy, to be greedy, right?
How about if, here's a question, if someone does not have a PhD, are the grants more difficult to get?
I don't think so. I don't have PhD.
So maybe previous publications are more important, or?
Yeah, previous publications and also the research activities. You have to keep research, right? And the new application form allow you to write any kinds of research activities. You can include any kind of research activities. So you just need to appeal to the reviewers how you're capable, how much you're not capable.
Greg has a question related to Trevor's point and the budget items applied for. Greg, do you want to ask your question?
So one of the things that I heard from some colleagues is that only a certain portion, typically, of your proposal funding target will be accepted. So my question is, how fixed are the budget items that you include for what you actually spend the money on later? Is it just one large amount of money that you get that you can then maybe spend in a different way than what you included in the original budget, because only some 60, 70, 80% of that budget was accepted? I'm not quite clear on the restrictions of what's put into the budget, given that a certain amount will be cut.
So do you mean the percentage that your institution will keep versus the amount they give you?
No, the idea that you put in a budget for 4.75 million, but that feedback I get from people is that rarely would you get that 4.75 million. You might get 3 or 3.5 or 9.
That's right.
But the things that you put on your item list to do the research, I'm curious on how limited or fixed or controlled you are by what you put in on the initial budget for items, when the money then gets cut, to then what do you actually use the amount of money that you get for? Do you have to use it only for exactly the things that you put in on the proposal?
Christopher, I think you have a comment on this.
Yeah, two things. One is the rule of, and I see the question here as well. There's two things. One is the rule of 75%. So you can probably bet that whatever you ask for, if you receive it, if you get accepted, you'll get about 75%. So I was recommended, and I recommend to other people, it's happened to me 2 times. So the 2 times that I've received direct funding and the one that I was on as a buntansha, it ranged between 75 and 80% of what you asked for was what you received. So know exactly how much money you need to do the work, and then find a way to inflate that limit, because you know that's going to get cut. That comes on to Greg's second question about line items on your application. Once you get the money, you're now requested to put into percentages whether it's going to go to things like travel, whether it's going to go to items, whether it's going to go to sundries and other miscellany. But if you said that you want to use this piece of software, or you want to buy this piece of hardware, and in the intervening period something better comes along, then you get to use it. Once you've got the money, you get to choose how to allocate it and what to buy. So the list of items that you put down are essentially examples of the kinds of things you're looking to use. But if something better comes along in the intervening period, then you can choose it. Or if travel becomes a bigger expense in the third year, you get to move those levers as well. Sorry, someone else asked a question that I've just lost here. Oh, hang on, sorry. Oh, the question about the university's cut. This depends. So you have what's called a direct fund and an indirect fund. The direct fund is the thing that gets added to your Kakenhi, whatever your system, your university system is. That's direct, and you get to use all that money, you allocate it for yourself. Different institutions have different rules for how they allocate their Kansets Keiki, the indirect fund. So just to give an example, my university, Kyudai, gives me 45% of that and just adds that essentially as cash to my Kenkyuki. Other universities that people that I've worked with work at take up to 100% of that indirect fund. So that's how the universities make their money. So this is why they, incentivize us and push us to apply for these funds. But it does depend. So once again, go and talk to the people in the research office who are dealing with Kakenhi. They'll tell you exactly how much of the indirect fund you will get. So say, for example, in the application before this one, my previous one, I got 500,000 yen per year, and then 150,000 yen. That was the direct, and the indirect was 150,000, of which I received 70,000 on some Kenkyuhi. But yes, some places do take 100%, and yeah, other places are a little bit more generous.
Other comments or other questions?
Yeah, just
You
to
said they
add,
take. Go ahead.
Sorry, just to add to what Chris was saying. So you have to justify everything you spend money on, but you can change your plans quite a lot. The obvious thing to, so what you need to do is identify the things you absolutely need. And then there are other things like travel to conferences, or if you want to buy books or journals. And, those things aren't so central. So, those are the things that you use to increase the budget, comfortably above what you absolutely need. And then once you know how much you have, you can adjust it, and, obviously things like computer hardware, software that changes, and Google, the prices go up and down. So, yeah.
I would say that on on how to correctly inflate a budget, oftentimes the Kakenhi reviewers might not look kindly on buying things that the university expect the university to give you as part of your job. So for example, like a computer or a printer or something like that. But a legitimate way to add to your budget is to look at things like analysis software, whether you're buying things like Mac, like QDA, or call it data miner, or SPSS, or things like that. These are things that university won't automatically provide. They are fairly expensive. You may not need to use them, but if they appear on an expense list, then I think they're justifiable costs that would, make it so that you can, slowly push those levers a little bit higher, so that when there is that cut in the money that you receive, you will have enough to complete your research task. So take a look at those software packages.
Another thing you can include in your budget is paying for research assistants. For example, you can pay students to participate. And that's something that it's easy to adjust for if you don't have enough money that you need. But as Chris said, you got to make sure you're not obviously just trying to rip it off and get money for silly things. And the other thing with paying research assistants.
Sorry, Trev. There was a request that your voice is kind of hard to hear.
Oh, okay. That's okay. I'm finished. So.
Oh, no, I didn't mean to make you quiet. I just to stop talking. I just wanted to know if you could move the mic or something like that. Okay. Do we have other questions or comments?
Just to respond to Greg's comment there, I currently work at a university that does not provide anything. So you walk into an absolutely open area. Of course, it being a national university, that's possibly to be expected, but the people who are reading the applications kind of think that there are some bare minimums. The only reason I mention it is because including something like, well, I'll need a computer to do this and things like that seems a little bit basic. So to follow up on Trevor's point, you want to move the budget into an area where you receive enough funding without looking like you're padding it with things that you should have anyway. But I take Greg's point that, yeah, because QDI doesn't provide them anyway. So.
Okay, thank you. We have a question in the chat. Do we know if the reviewers consider the reputation of your university when they're looking at your application? Miki, Naomi, do you know that?
I don't know. Probably it doesn't matter.
Anyone else have any experience or knowledge about that? Our applications, when you send them in, they're not anonymous.
No, probably. I don't know. No.
That was a question that I was going to ask, but because I didn't know. The PDF that you get back, it has that top sheet with all of your details on it, which obviously includes your institution, your level of education, things like that. I had heard, and I wanted to check, do the reviewers receive everything with that top sheet removed? Because obviously your name is going to be in your research achievements, but that doesn't tell them whether you're, as you said, whether you have a PhD, an MA, whether you're an associate assistant, part-time or full-time, and where you work from. So do you know if they receive the application minus that top sheet?
I don't know exactly, but what I heard is the application is now linked to the research map. That means automatically it appears, everything appears, your research history. So I think it's not anonymous.
Okay, Greg, do you want to ask your question directly?
Sure. It seemed like we got into the notion that some of the budget and items might be part of the evaluation, but I wonder, is that considered in the 3 factors that and the sub-elements that were covered in the presentation, or is that only later once you're in that top 25, 30% that then a number is being decided. I'm a little confused about what is actually being evaluated.
You mean about the budget? I think there is a assessment criteria PDF file that explains the first thing. Was it the first thing or not? But the budget expenditure is judged, looked through before or while evaluating. So it is something. Just one minute, I'll check. Yeah. It is not included in the three main factors of evaluation that the reviewers have to check if they are valid. I mean, the budget is valid for the research. Yeah, just check the PDF file of assessment criteria.
If I could just make a comment. Sorry, if I could just make a comment on that. The advice that I was always given to make sure that no one part of your budget of the costs, so for items and travel and miscellany and what's it, the disposable items, expendable items, that no one column should be more than 50% of your entire budget, in order to show that you are balancing across those four. So those four columns are there for a reason. So you want to make sure that even in the miscellaneous costs, you're putting things down like printing materials or, as we've had mentioned before, research assistants and things like that. So that you've to essentially demonstrate that you have considered all four areas of funding before putting your application.
Not exactly a question, just kind of amusing. Like, I wonder, there must be sort of caps saying, like, of all the available grant money, so a certain percentage is allocated for, science and technology, and this percentage is allocated for, yeah, so I'm just wondering, like, how big a piece of the pie are we all sort of fighting for? Yeah, does anybody know about that? Okay, that's fine. It was just some random thought as we talked about this. Yeah.
No, I don't know. Paul asks if anyone here has served on the review committee and if they're able to talk about that.
I'm pretty sure that if anybody has, they're not allowed to talk about that, right?
Well, depending on how good my Wi-Fi connection is, I can say that I haven't, but the advice that I received before my first successful application came from someone who had, and they talked a lot, exactly as Miki Sensei has told us, about the volume of work that you have to go through to review, and the incremental stages, as she correctly pointed out, to make your application stand out. So the spacing and the emphasizing, you can't include color, but it doesn't say you can't have emboldening, italicizing, underlining, shading, spacing. So those 5 things help someone who is going through 100 of these applications. So that informed my process of putting the the application together. So the first successful application was as a buntansha, and we came up with a system of what would be emphasized by shading, what would be italicized, what would be underlined, what would be emboldened, and I've kind of followed that through with my subsequent applications, and so I was very happy that Miki Sensei pointed out those things, because those were very carefully decided, and I think that those things help. So like I say, I've not done any reviews, but the feedback that I got came directly from someone who has been a reviewer, and said that those things helped just one application pop out. And when the percentages are that low, 10 to 20%, then anything that you can do to separate yourself from the pack is helpful.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. I know that it is possible to get the list of the past reviewers from the website of JSPS. You know, the reviewers have to serve 2 or 3 years, I heard. And after that, after the service, they can open the name. So you can now get the list of reviewers probably 2 years ago from the website of the JSPS. So you can probably check the name.
Okay, do we have any other questions or comments? If not, no.
Yeah, I think just one last thing is you have to remember that your proposal is being reviewed by humans, right? So it's not like a machine, and so you're trying to sell them on you, that you know what you're doing, you're serious, and and it has to be readable, so that they have to pick it up. They're really busy, and they've got to see immediately, the minute they pick it up, that you're serious about what you're doing and you're competent. So that's, I think anytime you write something, that's what you need to remember. But especially with this, it's humans who are reviewing it, so they're going to be very subjective. There's always going to be some subjectivity in there. So make it as easy and as clear for them as possible. Okay.
And just to get on that's exactly right. And just to reiterate what Miki Sensei said before, having someone in your department who's not in your field just have a look at your sight unseen, just put it in front of them and say, what do you think of this application? Does it look competent? Does it look good? And if they're not in your field, then you're exactly getting that point over the person who's going to be the reviewer, because they're going to see 100 of them, maybe 2 or 3 of them might be exactly this person's speciality. The rest of them, they're looking for competence. They're looking for that you have filled in every section, that you have addressed every question that's asked of you. And the person I was talking to when I was doing my first application, like 50% of them you can almost get rid of off the top, because you can see that they haven't addressed all the areas, like there's a lot of white space in this one. You're given 3 pages, 1.5 pages of it you haven't addressed. There's a reason that you're given 3 pages to do this. There's a reason that you're given 1 page to complete the area. There's a reason why you're asked about your ethical considerations. If there's any blank spaces, then you haven't addressed it as an applicant, and so why should they, as a reviewer, give you the same amount of time as someone who has addressed it?
Okay, so at this time, I'd like everyone, if you could, if you'd like to turn on your mics or use the Zoom reactions to give another round of applause to Naomi Miki, our presenter today.
Good job, Naomi.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Naomi.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.